Hey everyone, welcome to Oplasia MTG Deck Tech. Today we're going to look at 10 ticks Storm. So it's 10 ticks on Magic Online, $52 on TCGplayer Mid, so that's about what you should expect to pay for it. Really the only expensive card we have here is Paradox Engine. Alright, full credit goes to Travis Wu and whoever else it was in that video. I'll link it in the description below for the original idea for the deck, and I'll tell you my thoughts on it at the end. Alright, so the plan is to Durdle. So what we're going to do is we're going to put down a bunch of mana rocks. So we've got Pyramid of the Pantheon, we've got some Cultivator's Caravans, Magnifying Glasses, and some Hedron Archives. Alright. After we've done that for a few turns, what we want to do is we want to get down a Paradox Engine. With our Paradox Engine, we're going to start doing some loopies. Usually we have to wait till the next turn and hope they don't blow it up. Bit of a downfall in the Abrade age, but there you go. After we've got our Paradox Engine down, it is of course possible to do everything in one turn if you sort of like curved out with mana rocks, but anyway, we want to cast a bunch of cards. So we want to cast, there's quite a few cheap things. There's pyramids to cast, they can net us mana, because every time we're casting, of course, the thing that Paradox Engine does is it untaps all our non-land permanents. So we're going to cast a bunch of cards. We're going to draw some cards. So we've got stuff like Magnifying Glass. You can investigate with all the mana you're producing. You can use that to draw cards. Prophetic Prism draws you a card. The real spice, I guess, is the Quicksmith Spy. So you get this one out and you give your Paradox Engine taps to draw a card. So you start off, you tap, you draw a card with Paradox Engine, you tap down all your mana rocks, and then you cast whatever spell you've got. A nice one to cast is Reverse Engineer, gives you a lot of cards, very useful. Eventually what you're going to want to do is get a Whir of Invention, cast that for X equals 4, grab out an aetherflux reservoir. The other way around to do it is to have an aetherflux already out and then Whir for the Paradox Engine, but usually we want to do it the other way around. So then what we do is we cast like one or two more spells. Aetherflux Reservoir is our Storm, so whenever we cast a spell we gain 1 life. So for each spell we've cast that turn. So since we're casting a bunch of spells because we have heaps of mana, and we cast a spell, Paradox Engine is going to untap all our mana generator, and then we just, keep going. If things get desperate, you can start to sack Hedron Archives and start making clues. Anyway, we get a bunch of life and then we hit them in the head for 50. Usually they're not going to survive a hit in the head for 50. You got to make sure, you got to just sort of pray that they don't have whatever that birdie is that can counter this sort of stuff. I forget what it's called. Anyway, second plan, like this is plan B. We've got Metalwork Colossus or Colossi. When we have all these things like Paradox Engines down and Hedron Archives, they quickly become cost of 0. With Key to the City, we can make them unblockable, and 2 turns of that and they're dead. Sometimes you can get out multiple at once because they'll be so cheap, and then they better have an answer for like 3 Metalwork Colossus, or they're dead. Also, next thing this deck does is it has an infinite combo. So we have Magnifying Glass out in the field and Paradox Engine and bunch of mana rocks, of which we have many. We have 1 Metalwork Colossus in the graveyard and we have 1 in our hand. what we do is we cast the Colossus probably for free, hopefully, otherwise it's not going to be infinite. We're going to investigate. Oh, sorry, investigate first, my bad. Investigate, make a bunch of mana, put down our Metalwork Colossus, and then you can sack Metalwork Colossus from the graveyard. Sacrifice 2 artifacts, so your clue and your other Metalwork Colossus, and then we'd put that metalwork in your hand, and then you can cast it for free again. That will generate, like, you can just keep doing it over and over again. Of course, each time you do it, Paradox Engine triggers, and you can then draw a card, hopefully with your Quicksmith Spy. So when you're doing that, you're generating infinite storm, so you can like whack them for 10,000 if you want. Good luck with that. Alright, so I'll quickly go through my card choices. It's very similar to the one that Travis Wu put on his channel. So Pyramid of the Pantheon. If we get this down early, then it can really solve any mana hiccups that we might have later on, because we just put some bricks into it. Later on, if we're trying to storm off, it is a great one cost artifact. It's great because that's going to net you a lot of mana, so you can then cast maybe something a bit bigger, have a bit of spare mana up your sleeve. Alright, 2 drops. We've got Key to the City. We can use that to discard a metalwork into our graveyard, so then we can do our infinite combo. We can also use it to we'll discard to tap it and then untap it with, you know, when we're doing Paradox, and then we can easily have 2 mana, draws us a card. So there's a lot of card drawing engines going on here. Prophetic Prism. Sometimes we want to filter mana that's coming from Hedron Archive, and Prophetic Prism is good for that, but otherwise it's 2 towards the cost of Metalwork Colossus, and it also draws you a card when you you know, cast it. So that is great. Moving on to the 3 drop, we got Cultivator's Caravan, just your average mana rock. We pretty much never get to crew it, although there are probably some cases where you could. Magnifying Glass is a mana rock. It also does a clue trick with Investigate. Vizier of the Sand is a bit of a soft spot in our deck. If you want to replace that, you can, but it can be pretty cool, I find, to have a Quicksmith Spy targeting Paradox, and then you can like double tap basically to double draw each time you want to cast a spell, so you make sure you don't run out. Whir of Invention, not really a 3 drop, but it's sort of classed as one because it's an X with 3 blue. This card lets us bring out our aetherflux reservoir. The cool thing is not putting it into your hand, it's putting it into the battlefield. So you search for the artifact you need, and then you whack it on the battlefield. Alright, aetherflux reservoir is the sort of key to like hitting them in the head with a storm wind condition. Hedron Archive gives us 2 mana, which is awesome. It also, we can sacrifice it to draw 2 cards, another big upside, and it's essentially 6 mana towards an early Metalwork Colossus if we're going to go for that plan. And that really depends on your hand. Next up, Quicksmith Spy. So I think I've explained this before. You want to target your Paradox Engine and draw cards every time, so in case you run into a land or 2, you can still have some cards to cast to trigger off Paradox Engine. So Paradox Engine, aetherflux, mana rock's really the key. Every now and then we will get to reverse engineer. It can happen early on to set up win the next turn. So you might improvise, you might tap key to the city, which is really good because then when it untaps you can draw with it, and like some other random artifacts you have lying around, and draw 3 cards. And then often, you know, turn 3 or 4, you're doing that to set up for a turn 5 win, which this deck definitely can do. Can win on turn 5. The lands, desert or the mindful, another soft spot in this deck. It is just for the cycling that I have it here for. It is perfectly reasonable to replace it with islands. If it sort of protects you against flooding and drawing lands when you don't want to, and lets you swap it out for something else. At the same time, coming in taps can be a pain. Event is fair. Yet another way to get the card that we need. This is sort of like the worst way to get it, unless of course we're getting it back with, I don't even know how to pronounce this word, sequestered stash. We'll go with that. So when you do that, if your aetherflux has been blown up, you can get it back from the graveyard, and then you might be able to get it back into play. Right, sideboard plan. We have Turn Aside and Metallic Rebuke, with which we can counter counters basically. You might also want to counter, you know, you might want to counter creatures and that sort of thing that are pressuring us a bit too much. You can sort of transform, go aggressive with Tezzeret's Touch. I would consider putting 4 in here and getting rid of a Padim, if you want to make some little changes to this deck. So Tezzeret's Touch lets you do stuff like turn your Prophetic Prism into a 5/5, and then if he dies, it goes back into your hand, so you can cast it again and draw another card. So drawing cards is often the key to winning Magic, and this deck is especially wanting to draw cards. A spare Aetherflux Reservoir if you need it. Engulf the Shore against non-hasty creature decks that are killing us before we get to do our combo. Padim, if they are single targeting our artifacts, we can bring in Padim, have a useful body. It's one power is not going to kill anything, but 4 toughness is going to, you know, stop some stuff. Alright, so my verdict is this deck totally broken. It can be. It can be. It depends on the caliber of the decks you are playing. If your local game shop meta is really fast, you have stuff like Raminap Red, or you have multi vehicles and such, then this is not going to do too well. If you have a bunch of slower stuff, then you can definitely beat pretty much anything. Yeah, thanks for watching. Comment down below, would you use this? Yeah, let me know.